Good afternoon and welcome to a very special interview show of the Prode. Today, it's my pleasure to have Dr. Quraishi sir on the Prode. Dr. Quraishi has served as the 17th Chief Election Commissioner of India and is an author, speaker, and a renowned scholar. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time, and a very warm welcome to the Prode.
Thank you.
So today, sir is here with us to discuss his book, Population Myth, Islam, Family Planning, and Politics in India. And the link of the book is attached in the description box below, so do check it out. So, sir, I would like to begin the discussion by asking, what made you write a book on this crucial and important topic, and what was your motivation behind that?
Actually, the book started almost accidentally in as far back as 1995. The then UN country director of UNFPA, UN Population Fund, was a Canadian. He came to see me and he asked me to write a strategy paper for family planning among the Muslims. The assumption being that Muslims are resistant to family planning, and I should be able to write a strategy paper to dissuade them from this kind of resistance. So I was quite taken aback because I had no background of family planning, in the sense I had never worked in the Ministry or Department of Family Planning earlier, or nor was I an Islamic scholar. So why did he come to me? Because he had seen my work in some communication project, integrated women's development in Haryana, for just 2-3 days. So that gave him the impression that maybe I'm the right person. So I tried to get out of it, and I said, look, I know nothing about the subject, but why are you after me? But he was gave me a very lucrative offer. He was giving me a very lucrative offer of 1.5 lakh rupees for a 1-month consultancy. Now, the value of 1.5 lakh at that time was that my salary was 5,000 rupees. Therefore, it was genuinely attractive and lucrative. But some inner voice told me that I should not take anything. I should do it pro bono if I have to do it. So, and that's what I said. Sorry, okay, if you insist, I'll do it, but I will charge you nothing. So he said, well, how can that be? We always pay and you have to take. And then we negotiated a royal sum of 1 rupee. Now, whether it is 1 rupee or $1 million, it's a financial transaction. So we have to go through Government of India procedures. So he wrote to me. I insisted that he officially write to me a letter, and I'll get approval of Government of India, which I did, and then we signed an MOU to do this paper for 1 rupee. It took me 5 months, and now it actually opened my eyes. I found, till then, I also believed, like the right-wing is coming. Now, till then, the right-wing propaganda, which had influenced my mind also, was that Muslims produce too many children, and so much so that the proportion is that if a Hindu family has 2 children, Muslims have 8 or 10 children. In fact, that is a speech which I heard only yesterday also. So that indeed was the propaganda. So I also believe that that is the proportion. But I found that the gap between Hindu and Muslim population was not more than 1 child, 1.1 to be precise. So, and that also has now come down to less than half a child, 0.48. So, therefore, to give the impression that only Muslims are producing children and too many, and they are responsible for population explosion, turned out to be wrong. So, my paper, just 32-page paper, was circulated widely only by cyclostyling and photocopying. And it was never published in anywhere. It was for internal use. I also gave many lectures, and there also I decided that this is my national contribution, and I'll charge nothing even for my lectures, which I never did. Now, interestingly, my inner voice, which told me not to charge anything, turned out to be right. In 2000, I was in London with my daughter, who was studying in London and was staying in a hostel called London House. I got a call from somebody who introduced himself as another Dr. Quraishi, but he was the president of Muslim Doctors Association of UK. And he said, we have read your papers and we want to discuss certain issues. So the tone was a little something which made me uncomfortable, and I didn't want to get beaten up in London. So I decided, I told him that I'm leaving and going back the next day. So he asked for my flight number and he landed up at the airport. There were two of them. And the very first statement, which still rings in my mind, was that, Mr. Quraishi, family planning is a Western conspiracy against Islam, and they write such papers through UN agencies, meaning thereby that we are all mercenaries. In fact, the word was that they hire mercenaries like you to write such papers from through the UN agency. So if I had taken some money, so every charge would have stuck on me. So since I had not, I pounced on them instead. And I say, look, even if the Western world is Islamophobic, anti-Islam for political reasons, this cannot be their conspiracy, because otherwise they will themselves be producing 10 children and will ask the Muslims to produce 2 or 1, so which is not the case. So anyway, he gave me some book, this book, that book, read this, read that. I said, I'll read all that, but your doubt casting aspersion on my integrity is not acceptable. They never got back to me. That's how how did it become a book? It was a paper. So my friends advised me to expand it into a book because the reasoning was good. And every time I came close to completion of the book, the new data will come up. In fact, National Family Health Survey, NFHS 1 was the data I had in hand then. Then later on, 2, 3, and 4 came till for about 3-4 years ago. So instead of waiting for NFHS 5, which is around the corner, I finished the book, and that's how it is in the market.
That's great, sir. So what is the reaction of that president of the Muslim Doctors Association now after the book is released? I mean, did you got any message from him?
No, I haven't heard from them since then, but it's a good question, and I'll be curious to know. You are in UK, try and locate the Muslim Doctors Association of UK. I'm sure you'll find it on Google and ask them. In fact, if they haven't received my book, I'll send them the copy of my book. In fact, there may be many more shocking disclosures in this. For instance, I have proved through the book, as far as I believe, that Islam is not only not against family planning, Islam is the pioneer of the concept of family planning. But we have distorted it along the way. So I think these kind of findings may shock them, but it's interesting to see their reaction.
You mentioned about Islam and family planning. So in India, a majority of conservative Hindus, or we can say Hindu right, believes in a myth that the Holy Quran advocates the idea of larger families. What is the actual truth behind this, and what does the Holy Quran has to say on family planning?
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, let me make a clear statement that I'm very uncomfortable with the use of word Hindu Muslim throughout this book and throughout this presentation. We never thought like that. These things did not matter earlier. But now, in any case, in this context, since the allegation is Muslim produce too many, so that's why we have to use the word Muslim and Hindu. I have mentioned there is a chapter on what Quran says, what Islam says about family planning. And number one, that Quran has nowhere prohibited family planning. That's the most significant statement. Now, whatever Quran wanted to prohibit, whatever Allah wanted to prohibit, He has specifically done so. For instance, sex outside marriage is haram, illegal. Drinking liquor is haram. Taking interest on loan is haram. So there are so many things which are forbidden or haram in Islam in the Quran. In fact, there is a verse in the Quran where Allah is saying that whatever we wanted to prohibit for you, we have explained to you in detail. Now, He has not prohibited family planning. It cannot be anybody's case that Allah forgot, because forgetting is not Allah's quality. he didn't forbid it, prohibit it. Now, there are only the interpretations from various verses of the Quran. And I have mentioned all of them, which some are for family planning, some are against family planning. Now, typically, just for your understanding, one interpretation against family planning is in the context of female infanticide. The girls in the pre-Islamic society, Arab society, the girls who were born were considered a liability, as unfortunately they are today in India even now. So they used to bury them alive. Today there is infanticide and feticide, right? So there is a verse of the Quran which says, if you bury your daughters alive or kill them for fear that who will support them. So if they are born, we guarantee their sustenance, we will support them. God uses the word we for himself. So we will support them, and therefore don't kill them. So it was in this limited context of not killing the children, because once they are born, otherwise they will continue to kill who will support them. So God is saying that once they are born, they will feed them. Now, I have analyzing all the verses of the Quran. I have come to a conclusion from a verse which I just mentioned to you, where Allah is addressing young people. And he's saying that those of you who have the means to marry should marry, because it will keep you away from looking at other women with lust. Now, those of you who have the means. Now, this is a very critical clause. Now, somebody who was poor, he went to the Prophet, as was the practice, that they would they'll go to the Prophet to understand a verse of the Quran, which they had been told. So he said, look, I'm a poor guy. I'm very poor. I don't have the means, but I have my sexual desires. What should I do? So Prophet repeated that verse, till you have the means to marry and bring up a household, you should not marry. You should wait till you have the means, and to keep yourself chaste from looking at other women with lust. You should resort to fasting, because fasting suppresses sexual desires. So Allah has said that wait for the means, and Prophet has explained how to wait, how to physically control your sexual desire. Then there is another hadith. Hadith is what Prophet used to say, or what he said ever, or what he used to do as reported. So somebody went to the Prophet, he had many children, and he said, I don't want any more, and I want to practice azal. Azal was coitus interruptus, which means withdrawal method in simple language, withdrawal method. So he said, I want to practice withdrawal method, but a Jew says that that is minor infanticide. That is like a killing of the sperm. So what should I do? So the Prophet said, no, the Jew is wrong. The Jew is wrong, which means it is not minor infanticide. Go ahead and do it. So even the method is allowed and prescribed. Those days, this was the only known method. Today, we have many methods of family planning. Those days, this was the method. And Prophet allowed that method for a man to restrict his family. What more specific Quran or Hadith evidence do you need?
Yeah. So pardon me for using the word Hindu and Muslim, but it's a general belief among a large group of right-wing Hindus that Muslims are responsible for the population explosion in India, because they believe in producing more than 2 children. And there are also some right-wing conservative groups that believe that Indian Muslims are conspiring to overtake Hindus in terms of population to disturb the demographic balance. So what are your thoughts on this?
Correct. I have explained this in detail. Number one, the Muslims produce too many children and they think it is against Islam to do family planning. So I have already mentioned that through Quran, Hadith, I have explained in detail that that is not the case. In fact, Islam has prescribed Quran itself, which I just now cited, that only when you have the means, which is what National Population Policy of India also says. So, and it is expected that young people like you Only when you can afford to bring up a family, you should marry. Otherwise, how will you support a wife? And if you have children, how will you support them? So that is the understanding. And the right-wing propaganda that Muslims are conspiring deliberately to increase their population is absolutely wrong. And I have not heard till today, and through my research, I was trying to locate some Maulana, some authority figure saying the Muslim, you should produce children so that you capture power. Although I have heard many Maulanas opposing family planning on a different, not for political reasons, but saying that Islam is against it, which is what I'm questioning and challenging. So that Islam is against it, which is wrong, but not never for political reasons. On the other contrary, it is the right-wing Hindu groups who have been asking the Hindus to produce 8 or 10 children so that Muslims do not overtake them. Fortunately, no Hindu has taken them seriously. Otherwise, if Hindus were also producing many children, 8 or 10, God save the country. So this propaganda is only to create rift between the two communities, to create fear and hatred between the two communities, because it is also benefiting some politicians electorally. So it is just a propaganda. Otherwise, now the fact that for the last 30 to 40 years, the Muslims are adopting family planning much faster than the Hindus. The gap would not have come down from 1. As it is, it was 1 and not 10 children. It was 1 child, 1.1 in 1990, right? It has come down to 0.48, less than half, because Muslims are catching up much faster. So this gap is actually narrowing. In fact, to clinch this argument, I sent my data to a great mathematician in India, Professor Dinesh Singh. He was the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. So he and his fellow professor, Professor Ajay Kumar, they did a mathematical model for me on my request. Mathematical model normally predicts the future on the basis of the past. So they say, I said, tell me in how many years the Muslims will become majority. And he has sent me a graph which I'll share with you, which you can use this in this interview. That never, not for 1,000 years, in fact, never. In fact, the graph of Muslim growth is going like this, Hindu growth is going like this for the last 70 years, and will go on like this for the next 150, 200 or 1,000 years. So that clinches the argument. So, but obviously, it doesn't suit many people politically and electorally. So they haven't taken notice of my book, but fortunately, they haven't even criticized my book. Although it is almost a year, they had no criticism, not one line of attack. Except when you go to Amazon ordering my book, there are 164 reviews. 3 are hostile to me, but they were on the first day when they had only seen my name and not the book. So they started abusing. And all other 160 plus comments are supporting that eye-opening, fantastic, great read and everything. And mind you, they're all Hindus, which means Hindus have an open mind. And which is what I have said in many speeches, that and in my writing, that India is secular because Hindus are secular. They have an open mind. Of course, that is being distorted now deliberately because for political reasons. But for thousands of years, 5,000 years, anybody who comes from anywhere in all religions, they thrive and they grow because Hindus are happy to adopt any thing which appeals to them.
Yes, sir. So this is a very common question that arrives in the mind of Indian people, that is it possible to control the population of India through any law? And even if we try to do it, then don't you think so that law will be the violative of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution?
Yeah, in fact, forget about violation of the Constitution. Even if it was not in violation, a law is always counterproductive. And we have seen it. Now, for instance, during the emergency, when we try to push family planning down the throat of people, what a backlash the Congress party received. It was wiped out, particularly from North India. and was out of power for 3 years. And when they bounced back later, different. But till today, family planning has become a taboo subject. No politician wants to talk about it. In fact, a few years ago, the National Institute of Health and Family Welfare of Government of India, they had set up a committee to examine the role of politicians in family planning. I was the chairman of that committee, and we analyzed the parliament questions of 4 parliaments, 13 to 16 in 20 years of parliament, and thousands of questions, in fact, maybe lakhs of questions, and only 0.15% parliament questions were on family planning, which means no politician wants to talk about it. It has become a taboo subject. They're scared of talking about it because of the emergency backlash, and that was only for 2 years. Now, if 2-year emergency has caused such a setback to family planning for 50 years, imagine what the laws will do. Now, I have also mentioned in my study, a study that was done by a Madhya Pradesh very senior IAS officer called Mrs. Nirmala Butch. Now, no more. She studied 5 states which had declared 2-child norm as the norm for being eligible to contest local panchayat election. 5 states. And she found that it has damaged the women, because those men, in order not to lose their right to contest, they started divorcing their women. They started going in for abortions, and they started giving their children away in adoption. So the damage, the harm it did to women, and it will do so. And from there, she concluded, and rightly so, that any 1-child norm, 2-child norm is counterproductive. And mind you, all these proponents of 1-child norm, 2-child norm are always admiring China. Look at China, look at China. They have a 1-child norm. And do you know China had to abandon that 1-child norm in 2016 because of a tremendous backlash? In fact, they were moved to 2-child norm, which they abandoned in 2020. Now they've gone to 3-child norm. So what happened to your model, which you used to cite so much? China model, China model. Therefore, now finally, there is no need for, in fact, coercion is counterproductive, as I've said. Actually, our family planning program is great success. But we already have a national population policy. We have had it always. And the latest one being the year 2000 policy. Now, that policy has done wonders because it is entirely by persuasion, and it focuses more on spacing rather than sterilization, which is a permanent method. And as a result of that, we are about to reach within a year or so the replacement rate of 2.1. 2.1 TFR, total fertility rate. And for the benefit of your viewers, total fertility rate means the number of children a woman would produce in her entire lifetime. There are 2 parents, they will die. The 2 children, if they have 2 children, they will take over. The population is replaced. 2 is replaced by the new 2. Right? But what is 0.1 doing that? 2.1. Because some children die young. So to keep margin for those young children dying, 2.1. We have already achieved 2.1. 26 out of 28 states have already come below replacement rate. They have come to 1.9 and 2. Some have come to 1.6. So when you are already achieving something without coercion, where is the need for bringing in a 2-child norm and law and coercion?
Yeah. Yes, sir. So what are the associated issues with population control in India, according to you?
Well, associated issues are a good question, because we have found that religion had nothing to do with it, actually. There are socio-economic factors which determine the family planning behavior. First of all, the literacy, particularly of girls. As the girls' education goes up, the number of children goes down across the board, across all communities. And the second factor is income, prosperity. As the income goes up, number of children goes down. across communities. And the third is service access and delivery. Family planning, doctors, nurses, contraceptive availability. So as that goes up, number of children goes down. And we found that in all these three factors, Muslims are the most backward. So therefore, the solution lies, instead of attacking them and abusing them, give them education. Have you heard the right wing that ever talking about Muslim education? Whatever little education is coming through madrasa, they are attacking madrasa. Madrasa is nothing but a Arabic word for pathshala. It's just an Arabic, Urdu, Farsi word for pathshala. And now from tomorrow, start calling madrasa pathshala. Then it will be all right. So all it does is it teaches you same thing. Urdu, if that is your mother tongue, or Telugu, if that is your mother tongue. It teaches you language. It teaches you math. It teaches you normal things. And in most cases, they also teach you the Quran, because that is incumbent on every Muslim child, Muslim family, to teach the children the Quran. Otherwise, they would not know their religion. So it can be, it is actually as innocuous as that. So now, but they will never talk of, okay, all right, open a good school in Muslim areas. There was a study many years ago by an IS officer of UP cadre, a Hindu, mind you, who found that all the police stations were being set up in Muslim areas, and all the schools were being set up in Hindu areas. Why were they not setting up schools in Muslim areas? Why don't they talk about it? Now, second is income. Are they? Have you ever heard them say that let us work for the economic prosperity of the Muslims? All we hear, and so much of it in the last few years, that do economic boycott of all the Muslims. Don't buy anything from them. Don't even buy vegetables from them. Now, if they're already poor, and if you make them poorer, then if they go and produce more children, then you will cry. What is this silly the logic? You are not talking of the real factors. The third is service delivery. The doctors, nurses, contraceptives, NFHS, my entire data, by the way, all the statistics I'm using are all from Government of India data. National Family Health Survey was the census data. All right. Now, why are you not taking the hospital to the Muslim area? Because I have heard it many times, you must have heard it many more, that here every Muslim pocket is called a mini Pakistan. How can we go to a mini Pakistan? How can we send a doctor to mini Pakistan? And if you do not read those services, how will they have access? So therefore, this basic hypocrisy, basic untruthfulness is the factor behind it. Otherwise, I have mentioned in my book, in fact, the very purpose for which the UNFPA country director came to me, to promote family planning amongst the Muslims. My entire chapter, I'm a PhD in communication, and I have in social marketing, and I have passed on that skill through the chapter, how to promote family planning among the Muslims. I want Muslims to practice family planning better than every other community, right? For which we have to be aware of the factors which are responsible, which determine family planning behavior. And finally, let me also mention one point. As it is, Muslims are reluctant for family planning in the mistaken belief that Islam is against it. Despite that, so many millions of Muslims are now mentally prepared to do family planning, and they want family planning services to reach them, and which is not reaching them. Now, this is called in technical terms unmet need. Now, I have a need, and it should be met by making available doctors and nurses and contraceptives, but it is not being met. The highest unmet need of any community in the country is of the Muslims, about 16%. 16% Muslims is a lot, is a big number. If their needs were met tomorrow, they will immediately, the figures will shoot up, but you are not even meeting their needs because you are busy just blaming them. So you are not interested in solution. You are interested in just hiding behind some excuse. to create hatred and animosity between two communities.
Yes, sir. Right. So, sir, I would like to conclude by asking that is there anything else you would like to share with our viewers regarding your book?
Well, not really, but the point is, this book, of course, is being translated in Hindi. Translation is almost ready. And Setu publications in Delhi, they are coming out with it. Urdu translation is Bengali translation is ready, got to the press. Many other languages are translating, because this book takes on head on the propaganda of the last 60, 70 years of a huge organization. Now, how can it's a lone man's voice at the moment. Now, but now you are an intelligent person. You could have asked me. You asked me actually all tough questions, and every question you can make them even tougher. So the fact that people have been fed wrong information and nobody had countered it, and our fault also. Why did we not? Why did it not occur to us earlier that this propaganda? I also started believing that Muslims produce 10 children. Well, some Muslims may be producing 10 or even 12, but there are some Hindus who are also producing as many number, just one less, right? In fact, my conclusion is that I have found through various graphs that while Muslims are at the bottom of the table, Hindus are at number 2 at the table. Now, Muslim family planning is the least at 45%. Hindus family planning is number 2 at 54%. Sikhs are 80%. Why are Hindus not 80%? Why are Hindus so low in family planning practice like the Muslims? And if it is linked with patriotism, that those who produce many children are unpatriotic, well, Muslims are the least patriotic. Who is the second least patriotic? The Hindus, because they have the second highest population rate. So because they also have the similar factors. And I've shown through graphs. I'll send you my PowerPoint. You can use some of those graphs. You'll find Hindu Muslim shoulder to shoulder. They are not on the opposite ends of the spectrum. They are on the same side. Therefore, it is Hindu and Muslim issue together, and we have to address it with collective effort by addressing their education, their income, and better health infrastructure and services.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting and for talking on your book. And thank you so much for highlighting these important issues. And I really request our viewers to check out the link in the description box below to order their copies. And we look forward to your other translations of your book in other languages as well. Thank you so much.